Welcome back to On the Move with Victor Shi. This is Victor Shi. It is Monday, February 13th. I hope all of you had a great weekend. More than ever before, education is under attack. We are currently seeing that play out in Florida, where Ron DeSantis first banned AP African American history earlier this year from being taught because it, quote, lacked educational value. This comes after he approved AP European and Asian history courses, which I think just goes to show what he thinks of African American history. Then the College Board scrapped key parts of the curriculum after DeSantis' decision, and now they're calling Ron DeSantis' views about the AP African American history course politically motivated, which is exactly right. We're also seeing attempts across the country to limit what books children can read and can't read in the classroom. All this talk about critical race theory, which is a term that is taught in law school, and numerous other things that make it harder for students to learn about the full scope of American history. So today we're going to talk about what we should make of all of this, why Republicans are doing this, and how teachers should be responding to this. And today I'm so grateful to be joined by the perfect guest, Randi Weingarten, who serves as the president of the American Federation of Teachers, a union with 1.7 million educators and growing. Thank you so much for being here, Randi. It's so great to see you.
Thank you, Victor. I am really honored to be here with you.
Of course. So I have so much to ask you about because what's happening in these Republican controlled states is concerning to me, both as a student, but also as a young person generally. And I want to start off by asking you if you have ever personally seen such a direct and sustained attack on what students can learn as we're seeing now in states like Florida.
So, I am a student of history, and I was an AP Gov teacher and a social studies teacher, as well as a lawyer, and a labor activist. So there have been other times in our history where you see the politics or ideology trump critical thinking and practical skills and all of that. Like, take the Scopes trial, John Scopes, and the question about whether we should be teaching biology or creationism in schools. And you saw this kind of clash at the turn of the last century between, basically the politics of those who wanted a Christian state to overcome science. Now, and then you had in our country, think about Charles Lindbergh and how much suasion he had as an isolationist, and how FDR needed, unfortunately, Pearl Harbor to get involved in a war against authoritarianism and genocide. And then you had McCarthy. Now, and many of us, still, because of our parents and grandparents, understand the McCarthy era. But the point I'm trying to make is schools have been battlegrounds on ideology when there's been real, change in the country. But this is really different, because this is a country that is getting more and more diverse, and should be more and more big-hearted. We have a huge opportunity in terms of labor markets, in terms of the rebirth of manufacturing, and in terms of what just happened with COVID, understanding that public schools are really center of community. So there should be a huge opportunity here that, where you really do lift all boats. But instead, what you see is, frankly, one party. And I was really appreciative of the fact that Governor Sununu in New Hampshire even called out DeSantis and what he was doing in Florida. But you essentially have one party that has a huge grip on about 20 or 30% of the people in America that are basically saying, forget the future, that they want to go backwards to, in fear, to a country that we're not. And they're trying to basically erase Black history. They're trying to erase gay lives. So they're trying to erase anything they're trying to erase science. So it's not just erasing social studies, they're trying to erase science. And I go back to my classes. I went down to my basement. I tried to find my lesson plans from the 1990s because that's when I taught Clark Barton High School in Brooklyn, New York.
Hmm.
Literally, half of what I taught in AP Gov would be canceled or
Wow.
not allowed as a social studies teacher in Texas or in Florida. That's how bad it is. And so when you ask, is it worse than ever? Look, when somebody tries to ban a book about Roberto Clemente, I
Yeah.
think that's worse than ever. If they try to ban a book about Hank Aaron, I think that's worse than ever. If they try to ban a book about Anne Frank and Ruby Bridges, as happened in Texas, I think that's pathetic. And so what we have here is an attempt to stop kids from having knowledge, to stop kids from having empathy, and to stop teachers whose tutelage is better if kids deal with conflictual situation under the tutelage of teachers, to basically ban them, threaten them in Florida with felonies if they have
Mm.
classroom libraries. So in my history, it's worse than ever. But in the history of the country, you see this attempt to politicize education every time there is a big fork in the road about, do we go backwards or do we go forwards?
So I want to get to the implications of this because I think they're really profound in terms of what it does to students and teachers. But I first want to ask you about the college board and their decision over Ron DeSantis's decision to reject AP African American Studies. They at first basically responded and they actually removed certain elements of the curriculum from that course, things like the current Black Lives Matter movement and queer theory. Then they came out this weekend and criticized Ron DeSantis' decision. But I'm wondering what you make of the college board and their response in all of this.
So look, I'm glad that the college board yesterday or over the weekend apologized for their role in what was effectively um, canceling or Black scholars. And I think that they didn't, I mean, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. Look, I know them. I taught AP. I was disappointed in the first with what they did initially, said it in a tweet, but said that as a high school teacher, it's really important to have this AP African American history or African American studies course, not history course. Because a history course, you could make an argument that if the history went up to
Right,
1990,
right.
maybe not. But if it's an African American studies course, you want to see, how does what happens in the aftermath of George Floyd's murder, or all of the disproportionate murders we've seen in terms of Black and Brown young people. How does that center? What does that mean? What are the implications? That's essentially what Kim Crenshaw has asked us to look at. What are the implications when you see what happens in terms of housing and wealth? So an AP African American Studies course, just like an AP Bio course, just like an AP Gov course, is supposed to be a college course that is an elective for high school kids to take after, as for college credit. It's
Yeah.
really important to say it that way. And so the college board, I think, stumbled into DeSantis's trap. And I think this weekend, they basically said, no, we're not doing that. Regardless of, we had our process, and I may disagree with their process, but they had their process. And they basically said to DeSantis, you're not going to stop us from teaching this. And you're not going to stop us from putting these in terms of electives and things like that. And they went very clearly, but they clearly said what the letters were. We got kind of like open the curtain to see the back and forth bureaucracy
Yeah.
over what happened when, And so I think that they are taking on DeSantis now, which I think is important. And it will be interesting to see what DeSantis does next, because kids, let's just be clear about what happened here. There were kids in Miami-Dade who were taking this class,
Hmm. Hmm.
sixth period in a high school, for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months actually, from September through January. It was pulled from them in
Yeah.
January.
Yeah.
That is a disservice to those kids in that pilot.
Right.
And so, what is DeSantis going to do? Is he going to restore the class? Probably not. Now, what is he going to do in terms of the rest of College Board? Is now say that he's going to take away all the other AP classes that kids are taking because he doesn't like what the College Board has done? The College Board has now basically said to him, "You're a liar
Yeah.
and you can't do this." So it's going to be interesting to watch what DeSantis does now, because what DeSantis is doing is, it is as close to authoritarianism as we have in the United States of America. And again, I'm glad that Governor Sununu from New
Hmm.
Hampshire, a Republican, called it out. Because anytime DeSantis does not like what a person is doing in that state, particularly a political actor, he removes that person.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
removed, look at what he did in terms of, he didn't like what one of the scientists was doing months ago. He removed that person.
Hmm.
He removed the attorney general or the district attorney in Tampa. He removes people who have been school board members. All of this, they're all pretextual. There's all a different view of different reason why. And then he's now threatening teachers with felonies if they have classroom libraries. And because Joe Biden is so pro-union, he's going to try to figure out how to get rid of our union in Florida.
Oh.
This is all the hallmarks, not a strong man. This is the hallmarks of an authoritarian who is abusing process.
And we have to remember that as we head into 2024, this is not someone who is, I mean, he's competent, but he is just as extreme and just as crazy as people like Trump. But I want to zoom out for
Well,
a
I don't
second.
even know if he's competent. I mean, I think it's,
Yeah.
look, he got a lot of money. I mean, maybe he is, maybe he isn't, but this is a matter of, this is not America, and
Yeah.
this is not American, and this is not. But we do know, Victor, and you just said it. He's running for president, and all of this is about running for president.
Yeah. I want to zoom out for a second because it seems like the attack on education and what students can learn is having an impact not only on students but also teachers. You obviously had the American Federation of Teachers. I'm wondering what you've heard from teachers about this current political environment and how much this limit on what they can teach is affecting teacher retention rate.
Look, educators around the country hate this.
Yeah.
You have really conservative educators in the panhandle of Florida who have now been told to put a tarp on their books, classroom libraries, that they have purchased themselves. Teachers who need to make a living, and what DeSantis is doing is just trying to, as he has to, as every governor has to, hugely lift starting salaries because they're so low compared to the market rates of what teachers can make in other jobs. But what he's done is, these teachers who are there, who really want to live and work in the communities in which they teach, they're not getting raises. So you got people who are really worried every day about how they answer a question to kids. Kids are curious. We
Mhm.
always have to answer kids' questions. We have to create a welcoming, safe environment. So is there a retention issue? Yeah, there's a retention issue. Can you center it on, oh, it's because of, the toxic environment, or because of the wages? It's because of all of the above.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing, and you see this basically in what parents say. Parents really believe that, we've just done polling. parents basically think that their kids' teachers don't, basically are appropriate, don't engage in cultural issues.
Mm-hmm.
The cultural issues are like at the bottom of the, of what their concerns are. These aren't national polls from, or national polling from December. When you ask them, by an 80-20 split, they say support public schools right now
Yeah.
instead of giving me more choice. And and so they really love and are engaged with and elevate their kids' teachers. Yet when they're asked the question about whether they would want their kid to be a teacher, they say, hell no.
Hmm.
So parents get this too, and teachers basically do this work because we want to make a difference in the lives of kids.
Yeah.
That intrinsic value is what motivates teachers. But we should be allowed to make a difference in the lives of kids, and
Yeah.
we should have the support and the resources to do it. And then also teachers should be able to make a livable wage. and
Yeah.
and so it's not such a big ask that teachers have, which is dignity, respect. But what you see is, you see the culture wars being there
Hmm.
because you have people who just want power through anger and through, what Bannon says, anger, chaos, and division. So it's this race between fear and hope, and teachers play a really important role
Yeah.
in being the, agents of hope.
Yeah.
And so that's why they're targeted.
I mean, they're the backbone of democracy. And one of my biggest fears is that like you said, the culture war, the fear, the division, the chaos that they're trying to perpetuate is having a real effect on parents and people believing that critical race theory or these culture war issues are being taught inside the classrooms when
Right.
something like critical race theory is taught in law schools. And I was actually talking to a friend the other day, and he said that he didn't even know the term critical race theory until Republicans brought it up, because it's just something that we aren't taught in classrooms, but Republicans are feeding this narrative. And just as one final question, I mean, how much do you think that blatant lie and misinformation is piercing into parents and what parents think? And what do you think we should all be doing to push back against that?
So the most important thing that we can do, because we live in a post-truth society. I don't
Yeah.
like that we
Yeah.
live in a post-truth society, but we do. Trust, relationship building, and community is the way that you vitiate hate and this disinformation.
Yeah.
And so that's why they try to undermine teachers so much, because who is basically teachers and nurses are the two professions that are most trusted.
Yeah.
So the most important thing is to be in community with teachers, to be in community with each other, and to fight together as community. Fight against the book bans. Fight against, go to a school board meeting when somebody tries to, demonize teachers or demonize curriculum. Don't go alone. Go together with a few people. When you see a book being banned in a school, um, have a, like we do, have a book fair.
Yeah.
We've given out 1 million books last year called Reading, in our Reading Opens the World program, because kids we need to embed the love of learning and reading.
Yeah.
And of course, voting. Voting is really, really, really important. Vote for hope, vote for aspiration. And the last thing I would say is, no, as you just said, Victor, this is totally made up. The person who actually started this, Christopher Rufo,
Yeah.
there are tweets that show that he knew exactly what he was doing. He was
Mhm.
trying to toxify the situation. I was trying to see if I could find them quickly, but you can find them.
Yeah.
He's, he tried to toxify the situation. He tried to take this term, critical race theory, that nobody knew. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's an important theory. And I don't want to erase Kim Crenshaw or Derek Bell, because it was an analysis about how you look at institutional racism,
Yeah.
instructional
Yeah.
racism, and see it. But it's taught in college and in law school.
Yeah. Yeah.
But support teachers, support public education, and let's be in community to fight this book banning and fight the efforts
Yeah.
to undermine the ability to teach kids critical thinking and problem solving and practical skills. That's what we do in
Absolutely.
public education, and that's what we need people to support us doing.
Absolutely. We all have to push back against this because when they come after education, it says a lot. Randy, thank you so much for being here and for
Thank you,
all that you
Victor.
do. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Really
Thanks so
appreciate
much.
you.
Thank you. Well, that was a chilling episode with Randy, and I think she contextualized it perfectly about this current political environment that we're living in, where you have governors and state officials across the country who are coming directly after the lives of young people, who are coming after teachers. It's having real world implications about what students can learn, what teachers feel about, creating a safe space in the classroom. And I think, like Randy said at the end perfectly, we all have to do our part to stand up against this because this is going to affect all of us, the future generations, and what we learn about American history. And it does a disservice to anyone who is in a classroom. And so, I know this won't be the last time we talk about this on this show. And we'll have on teachers, we'll have on people who are in this fight because it is so important. We cannot allow them to win this culture war battle that is completely manufactured. Before we go, I just have a few news of the weekend things. Yesterday, as we all probably know, the Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl. Congrats to them. And we also saw Rihanna perform the halftime show while she was pregnant. So she is now having another baby, and she performed this spectacular halftime show, just really owning the moment. And, that came a few days after Donald Trump attacked her for having, quote, no talent. But as we all saw last night, no matter what you think of the performance, I think we can all agree that Rihanna is talented. What she was able to do while pregnant is just amazing. And there have been so many tweets out there that have been saying, I could barely walk when I was pregnant. Look at what Rihanna is doing. I mean, it was incredible. And Anna Navarro, who is quite a famous or outspoken commentator, tweeted that last week she was at a Mark Anthony concert, and she was only clapping and sitting down, and she had to lay down the next day because she was so tired. But look what Rihanna's doing while she's pregnant. I mean, it was quite amazing, and she had a great lineup of songs that she sang. Kind of put a dig to some people with the first song that she sang, and it was just a great collection of songs. And I wish it was longer, but I guess that's all the time that we're given during the halftime show. So great performance by Rihanna, great Super Bowl Sunday that brought people together. Yesterday, there was also an unidentified object floating over Lake Huron, which is in Michigan. And we saw Lisa Slotkin represent Michigan, who tweeted out that the Defense Department shot down this unidentified object. This is the third one in a week. So just really mysterious things. And I think Juliet Kayyem has said it best on CNN, where, we don't know what exactly is going on. Wait for the facts to come out and then come to conclusions. I think it's premature for anyone to come to conclusions about what we know so far. But it is disconcerting, knowing what is out there in our skies. But I'm just grateful that we have President Biden, who is in charge, and not Donald Trump. Next, we have this really, I think, chilling piece of reporting from the Washington Post. And they reported over the weekend that the Trump campaign in 2020, after the election, hired this research firm to look into claims about fraudulent results in the 2020 election. And they hired this research firm. The research firm came back to them and said that there was no fraud in the 2020 election. Yet Donald Trump and those around him said that there was fraud. And so this is kind of this another attempt, another pattern of the Trump team knowingly spreading the big lie, putting democracy in danger. And ultimately that led to the January 6th insurrection. And they're still going to this day, casting doubt on elections, even though the courts and also this research firm have all told them that there has been no fraud. So it's just kind of gets to the intent of what Trump and his team were going at in 2020. And that this is just another effort in their really sustained campaign to undermine trust in democracy. And we cannot fall for this. So if you haven't read that reporting, I urge all of you to read it. It's really chilling. And just kind of knowing that this is what the Trump campaign knew, and this is what the Trump campaign told the voters. They basically lied to the voters about election results, and people believe them. And so another piece of really concerning news. And the one last thing is more craziness from the Republican Party. Marjorie Taylor Greene yesterday, or I guess on Saturday, was in Idaho, and she asked basically a bunch of supporters whether or not they think Mitch McConnell is a Democrat. And every single supporter in that audience, and there were about, if I could guess, probably around 50, raised their hand. I mean, it was kind of like a cult moment where Marjorie Taylor Greene asked the audience whether or not Mitch McConnell, out of all people, was a Democrat, and every single one raised their hand. And just kind of gets to the dysfunction, the chaos, the division that we're currently seeing in the Republican Party right now. If they think Mitch McConnell is a Democrat, I truly don't know what to say. But it's, Marjorie Taylor Greene running the party right now. They're letting her control the narrative, and she is effectively the Speaker of the House right now. She is controlling the show. She's controlling what Kevin McCarthy does, and I don't think that they can ever turn back. This is what the Republican Party is. Just let that sink in, and I posted a video of it on my Twitter if you want to check that out. So that's all the time that we have for today. We went a bit over, but I thought it was a great episode with Randi Weingarten. Just a quick programming note. Tomorrow we'll be back at 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time, right here on youtube.com/Politicon. We'll be back every day this week with a new guest who you do not want to miss. We have some great guests lined up for you, so don't miss those. Again, we'll be back every weekday at 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time, right here on youtube.com/Politicon. Don't miss a single episode. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss it. And I will see you all tomorrow. Have a great rest of your Monday.